Now with Bad Vegan, it was a guy that was swindling this gal who has this like elite vegan natural raw restaurant in New York City.
So I only watched a few episodes of that one.
How come you didn't get excited because that's
No,
not
I had to leave, and you kept watching it without me.
and you don't go back and rewatch things?
I want to.
You
I
want
just
to?
haven't.
Oh. And so she meets this guy on the internet, actually through Words with Friends. Remember Words with Friends? Yeah, I guess they met like that.
We used to play that.
I hated playing. I
And
played
you
it
were not
because
that good at it.
No, I played it for you. Because you loved Words with Friends.
know.
You were
Like, we should play.
Yeah,
You
and I was
play
like,
me?
I'm like, I suck. So literally, I had multiple people ask me to play Words with Friends, which is weird. Why would I have a bunch of people like?
Everybody played it at one
Everybody
point.
played it,
It was
yeah.
like right when we met. So what, 2012? Yeah, it was a big deal.
And so I did it for you. You know, my love
Thank you.
for you.
My
But-
love for you.
Yeah,
forced me.
So that's how they met, and so it was the same thing, except the guy did it. He's like, hey, but he also had a double thing to it, where he also played this like hyper spiritual cult thing, and so he's like, you know, they're testing us, like there's the elites that are testing them, you know, and it was sounded very culty, where they're like, you know, this is not a game that we're playing. We have to show that we are compatible, and you know, this is for the greater good of humanity. He would spin things like that, and so
She fell for it.
She fell for it, which is so dumb. But they also mentioning how they're specifically talking about women, but they said people are more susceptible to fall for stuff like that, who are more like into crystals and astronomy,
Already have a little bit of
astrology
that
and all that
background,
stuff,
yeah.
where they believe in a lot of these like hyper spiritual existences kind of thing, which I thought was really interesting. So she fell for that, but then he also spun his own story, where he's like, he's a former Navy SEAL.
No, he still was.
Oh,
wasn't
he's
he?
still a
Yeah,
Navy SEAL,
'cause
so
he
he's
would
doing-
like go on these
Yeah,
missions
he's-
and like
he was
tell
doing
her how
all the-
dangerous
exactly.
it was.
And then at one point he started gaining weight and getting fatter, and he said to her like that he has to do this. This is his meat suit to show for her to prove that she's not with him just for his looks. So it's like,
'cause
so
he's
basically
such a good-looking guy.
So basically, some fat guy tricked a cute chick who had money.
I can't even believe that.
You know, within celebrities, because she hung out with like Alec Baldwin and stuff like
Yeah.
that, or at least knew Alec Baldwin, and then swindled, and then I think he
He married her, right?
convinced her to marry him. They
Kept asking her for money.
kept asking for money. I think like almost like $500,000 or something like, or like no, $1.7 million.
Like
I think.
over time.
Over time, yeah. And she would borrow money from her, high up industry friends, you know, who are and entrepreneurs and investors. And it basically like got to the point where she's in like crappy hotels in Vegas, and they're just gambling. So it turns out this guy is just a loser, fat guy with a gambling problem. And then he convinces, and I don't know how he convinced it, but somehow his dad, who's an alcoholic, he like had him play in on this to convince her. So he basically vouched for him. So she'd be like, "Was he? Is he really a Navy SEAL?" He's like, "Oh yeah, he is."
Oh,
Yeah.
so it's like, of course you're gonna believe.
The dad, yeah.
Yeah.
But it turns out the dad just got his own gambling and drinking problem.
He
and
wanted the
he's
money
getting
too.
paid off, yeah.
That's wild.
So yeah, she had to go to jail, and he went to
did?
jail, yeah. And
Is he still in jail?
I think he only went for like a year or something like that, nothing long. But there are conspiracy theories about her that, I mean, more people who are kind of looking into it, that she maybe wanted to like swindle her business partners. Like it got to the point that he convinced her and his staff, or her staff. He convinced her staff without her permission that from now on he's running the business, and the finances go through him, and he's working for her essentially. But basically, he kept the money, never paid the staff. All the staff quit. They protested
oh my
against him,
gosh.
and so he's just taking that money.
Just gambling.
Yeah, and
Did
she's with
it-
him the whole time.
Oh my gosh.
And he keeps, even when they finally got to be like on the run, when they're like in
What was
Vegas.
he telling her? Why were they on the run?
That this is part of the
Somebody's
plan. This is part of the bigger picture. This is part, and so she kind of, the way they portrayed her in the documentary, that towards the very end, which it got really really sad in the end, she looked like one of those like victims that they, like those stories where they'll trap the girl in the basement for 10 years and they're like a sex slave and stuff like that. She was kind of like that. She was kind of dazed, and they were never physical. Like she's like, every time we would stay in hotels, they had 2 separate rooms.
Why?
So she was I guess when it looked like she was so deep into this lie that there's like no way to come out except but just keep being in this like dazed
you just kind of like play into it more and more and more.
But then there's conspiracy theories that she possibly wanted to play into this to screw the investors out of, like, basically get cash out of her company. And but I don't when you already established your name, you're a high,
there'd be no reason to do that if you're already doing so well. It wasn't a restaurant doing really well.
Very well, within that community of like vegans. Is it
still open?
I don't know, possibly, yeah.
Maybe somebody bought it out.
Yeah, I don't know. But it's so so let's say the conspiracy theory is not true. What would make her fall so far into a lie that's so blatant?
That's the thing that is weird to me. It'd be one thing if he was like super like affectionate and sweet with her and she kind of like fell in love with him. I could see that happening more, because that's something probably I would do if somebody came like just randomly I met and they were really sweet and just like knew how to win me over.
You said you do it right now?
No, I'm saying like that's my personality.
That's what she said. Like right now, somebody came.
No, I'd be like, well, because you and I laugh about it every time we watch that. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's totally me. I would totally fall for that.
You would take business loans out to
just to help somebody. Be like, they just need it. Oh, so I think about that all the time. I'm like, I would probably fall for it if somebody like swept me off my feet first, made me like really care for them and fall in love with them. But the fact that they weren't like really physical, and it didn't seem like she, even the episodes that I watched, she was telling, or her coworkers or the employees were saying that it didn't really ever look like she even cared for him that much, like, or had affection towards him either. So I'm like, why would you?
Well, I kind of wonder if the same thing happens when, because it does make sense. I think in the beginning she did fall in love with him because they were playing these games. Oh, another thing, he convinced her that her dog was her world. Like, he convinced her that within this kind of, if she played along to what his spirituality is in the middle of this, that he will make her dog her dog was her world. Period. That he would make that dog immortal. And
so maybe that's what she wanted.
So she kind of believed from the romantic. So he was sweet, and then later on, he never hit her or anything like that. But the only time they seems like they yelled is when she would start these fights of like, obviously brains exploding. You know? But
that's wild. Yeah, I can't. When you watch stuff like that, it's so mind blowing because you're like, how could somebody fall for that and be so just naive? But you hear about it so often, or at least in these documentaries that are coming out. You're like, so many people do it. Hey, thanks for watching our Next Door Neighbors podcast.
And be sure to capture the full episode anywhere podcasts are streamed, and including our YouTube channel, Next Door Neighbors.